Imagine walking through the mountains of northern Italy. The trail becomes narrower, the cliff grows steeper. Every step feels more dangerous than the last. Then, you look up, and suddenly, you stop, because hanging from the side of a vertical cliff, hundreds of feet above the valley, is a church that doesn't seem possible. Your first thought isn't, "How beautiful." It's something much simpler. Who built a church there and why? For more than 500 years, pilgrims have climbed this mountain searching for the answer. Some believe the sanctuary exists because of one miraculous event. Others believe history tells a different story. But before you decide, you need to hear the mystery from the beginning, because the final discovery explains why millions still make this difficult journey today. Northern Italy is filled with beautiful churches, ancient monasteries, magnificent cathedrals. But there is only one sanctuary that seems to have grown directly out of a mountain: Madonna della Corona, built into the sheer rock face of Monte Baldo, more than 2,500 feet above sea level. From a distance, it almost disappears into the cliff itself, as though the mountain refuses to let it go. The first time visitors see it, they almost always ask the same question: how? How did anyone build something here centuries ago? Without cranes, without modern roads, without machines? Even today, reaching the sanctuary requires determination. Pilgrims follow steep paths carved into the mountain. Each turn reveals another breathtaking view, until suddenly, the sanctuary appears, almost suspended between heaven and earth. It's so extraordinary that many people spend several minutes simply staring in silence. Because the building doesn't look constructed, it looks placed, almost as if it had always belonged there. But the mountain was hiding another mystery, one that begins hundreds of miles away. The year was 1522. Far from Italy, the island of Rhodes had fallen. Churches were being looted. Sacred objects disappeared. Among them, according to ancient tradition, was a beloved statue of the Virgin Mary. For many, it was lost forever. Then, an extraordinary story began to spread. People claimed the statue had not been destroyed, it had not been stolen. It had been carried away by angels days later. The same statue was said to have appeared inside a cave, high above the Adige Valley, on the side of Monte Baldo. No one could explain how it had arrived. No roads reached the cliff. No one had seen anyone carrying it. The location itself seemed impossible. Was it truly a miracle? Or had courageous believers secretly rescued it during one of history's darkest moments, centuries later? Historians still debate the answer. But regardless of which explanation people accept, one fact remains. From that moment on, the mountain was never the same again. Imagine being told to build a church, not on a hill, not in a village, not beside a road, but halfway up a vertical cliff. Most people would laugh. Builders of the 16th century didn't. Stone by stone, they climbed dangerous paths carrying everything by hand. Every beam, every block, every tool. One mistake could mean falling hundreds of feet. The mountain offered no shortcuts, only faith, determination, and extraordinary perseverance. Generation after generation continued expanding the sanctuary. Each addition seemed more impossible than the last, until eventually, one of the most spectacular shrines in Europe stood before them. Today, architects admire its engineering, pilgrims admire its beauty, but perhaps both groups are asking the very same question. Why would anyone go to such extraordinary lengths to build a sanctuary here? The answer lies not in the stones, but in the people who kept returning. Long before thousands of pilgrims climbed these paths, before the sanctuary, before the great church, this mountain belonged to silence. For centuries, hermits came here for one reason: not to escape the world, but to hear what the noise of the world often drowns out. Imagine living inside a cave carved into the rock. No electricity, no comfort, only the sound of the wind, the cry of eagles, and endless hours of prayer. Most people would have called it loneliness. The hermits called it peace. Generation after generation, they chose this impossible place, not because it was easy to reach, but because reaching it required leaving behind everything that distracted the heart. Perhaps, without realizing it, they were preparing the mountain for something much greater. When the sanctuary eventually began attracting pilgrims, people immediately sensed there was something different about this place. The silence wasn't empty. It felt alive. Even today, many visitors describe exactly the same experience. The moment they step onto the narrow walkway carved into the cliff, they instinctively stop speaking. No one tells them to. The mountain somehow does it for them, as if every step upward is also a step inward. Every famous shrine has beautiful architecture. Madonna della Corona has something even more powerful. Stories, hundreds of them, walk through the sanctuary today, and you'll discover walls covered with ex-votos, small paintings, photographs, letters, crutches, military medals, wedding rings, hospital bracelets, simple objects, each representing a life that someone believes was changed forever. Some tell the story of impossible recoveries. Others speak of children finally born after years of waiting. Families rescued from tragedy, accidents survived, desperate prayers answered. The oldest surviving testimonies date back centuries. Generation after generation, new stories continued appearing. Not because someone asked people to leave them, because gratitude naturally wanted to leave something behind. Perhaps that's what makes these walls so moving. They don't try to prove miracles. They simply tell human stories, stories of fear, hope, desperation, relief. And every single object silently asks the same question. What happened to this person? No documentary could ever tell them all, but together, they form one of the most extraordinary collections of hope anywhere in the world. If you enjoy discovering the miracles, mysteries, and extraordinary stories hidden behind the world's most famous shrines, subscribe and join us on this journey. Every week we explore places where history, faith, and real human lives come together in ways that still inspire millions today. And trust me, the final chapter of this story reveals why people continue climbing this mountain generation after generation. Today, cars can bring visitors much closer than pilgrims of the past. The roads are safer. The paths are easier. Yet something remarkable has never changed. Thousands still choose to walk. Some climb slowly, others barefoot. Some carry heavy crosses. Others carry something far heavier. Their worries. Parents praying for children. Children praying for parents. Couples hoping for a family. People facing illness. People grieving someone they love. From a distance, they look like ordinary visitors, but each one is carrying an invisible story. Perhaps that's why Madonna della Corona has remained alive for so many centuries. People don't come here because the climb is easy. They come because hope rarely follows the easiest road. And when they finally reach the sanctuary, many don't rush inside. They stop, turn around, and look across the valley below. In that moment, the climb suddenly makes sense. Not because they've reached the top of a mountain, but because, for a brief moment, they've left the noise of the world behind. Let's go back to where this journey began. A sanctuary, hanging from the side of a mountain, a place that seems to defy gravity itself. After everything you've seen, one question still refuses to disappear. Why here? Why build one of Italy's most extraordinary shrines in a place so difficult to reach? Was it simply because of a miraculous statue? Or was the mountain itself part of the message? History offers several explanations. Some historians believe devoted Christians brought the statue here during a time of war to protect it from destruction. Others hold firmly to the ancient tradition that it was carried here by angels after the fall of Rhodes. The truth has never been proven beyond doubt, and perhaps that is exactly why the story has survived for more than 5 centuries. Because every generation arrives with the same question and leaves with its own answer. But maybe the greatest mystery isn't how the statue arrived. Maybe it's why this place continues changing people long after they leave. Stand at the edge of the sanctuary. Look across the valley. The wind rises from below. The cliffs seem endless. The silence is almost overwhelming. In that moment, something becomes clear. This mountain was never meant to be convenient. It was meant to slow you down. Every step upward forces you to leave something behind. Your distractions, your hurry, your certainty that everything must always make sense. Perhaps that's why pilgrims have continued climbing this path for hundreds of years, not because they expected spectacular miracles, but because they hoped to return home. Different. Some arrived carrying fear. Others carried grief. Many arrived with questions, and countless people left with something impossible to measure: peace, hope, the courage to keep going. Maybe that is the miracle people speak about most often. Not that the mountain changes, but that the people who climb it do. So, who built a church on the side of a vertical cliff? History can explain the stones. Architects can explain the engineering. Archaeologists can explain the different construction phases. But none of them can fully explain why this impossible place continues drawing people from every corner of the world. Perhaps the real mystery isn't hidden inside the sanctuary. Perhaps it's hidden inside every person who makes the climb. For over 500 years, Madonna della Corona has stood between earth and sky. Silent, unmoving, waiting, not demanding belief. Only inviting every visitor to ask one simple question: what is worth climbing for? And perhaps that question is far more powerful than any answer. If this story made you see Madonna della Corona in a completely different way, tell us in the comments. Do you think the greatest miracle is how the sanctuary was built, or the lives it continues to change today? I'd love to read your thoughts. And if you enjoy discovering the hidden mysteries, extraordinary shrines, forgotten miracles, and remarkable stories that have shaped Christian history, subscribe to Divine Eternal Stories. Every week, we uncover another place where history, mystery, and faith meet in ways that continue to inspire millions. Because our next journey will take you to another place that seems just as impossible, and its story may be even more extraordinary.